Imagine Mike Tyson strolling into a bank for pigeon cash when, boom, masked robbers storm in, guns blazing, screaming for money. But this isn't just any heist. It's a showdown. With fists flying and quips sharper than their knives, Mike turns chaos into a knockout circus, dismantling the crew one by one. Who's this legend, taking down thugs like it's a Tuesday workout? You won't believe how it ends. Stick around for the jaw-dropping finale. Grateful to have you here. Which part of the world are you watching from? And please leave your thoughts on the message I want to convey. The sun hung low over the jagged skyline of downtown, its golden rays slicing through the haze of exhaust and city noise. First Citibank stood at the heart of it all, a squat, unassuming building of glass and steel that hummed with the quiet rhythm of routine. Inside, the air smelled of polished wood and stale coffee. Tellers clicked away at their stations, customers shuffled through the line, and the soft drone of elevator jazz floated overhead. It was the kind of morning where nothing extraordinary was supposed to happen, at least, not until Mike Tyson walked in. The glass doors swung open with a faint creak, and there he was, a mountain of a man, his presence filling the room like a storm cloud rolling in. Mike wore a weathered trucker cap, pulled low over his brow, dark sunglasses that hid his piercing eyes, and a faded denim jacket stretched tight across his broad shoulders. In one hand, he clutched a battered flip phone, its screen cracked but still flickering. He flipped it open, checked the time, then snapped it shut with a grunt. "Gotta get some cash for my pigeons," he muttered to himself, his voice a deep, gravelly rumble that seemed to vibrate the floor. This better not take all damn day. He joined the line, towering over the other patrons, a balding businessman tapping impatiently at his watch, an elderly woman clutching a purse stuffed with coupons, and a frazzled mom trying to keep her toddler from darting off. Mike stood there, arms crossed, his impatience simmering beneath a calm exterior. He glanced at the tellers, 3 of them, moving at a glacial pace, and sighed. Come on, people. Pigeons don't feed themselves. The line inched forward. Mike was 2 customers away from the counter when the world exploded into chaos. The front doors blasted inward with a thunderous crash, shards of glass spraying across the marble floor like jagged confetti. 5 figures stormed in, their heavy boots pounding the ground in a chaotic rhythm. They were a menacing crew, masked and armed. Pistols gleamed in their gloved hands, a shotgun swung menacingly, and one wielded a wickedly sharp machete that caught the light like a predator's tooth. The leader, a wiry, feral-looking man in a skull mask, strode to the center of the room and fired his shotgun into the ceiling. Plaster dust rained down, mingling with the screams that erupted from the crowd. "Everybody down!" Skull Mask roared, his voice cutting through the panic like a blade. "Hands up, faces on the floor. You move, you bleed." The bank dissolved into a frenzy. Customers dropped like flies, some curling into balls, others scrambling for cover behind chairs and planters. The businessman whimpered, clutching his briefcase like a shield. The old lady pressed her coupon-stuffed purse to her chest, muttering prayers. The toddler wailed as his mom dragged him under a table. Tellers ducked behind the counter, one fumbling for the silent alarm with shaking hands, her breaths coming in sharp gasps. But one man didn't move. Mike Tyson stood rooted to the spot, hands stuffed deep in his pockets, his head tilted slightly as he studied the intruders. His sunglasses glinted under the fluorescent lights, giving him the air of a lion sizing up a pack of hyenas. The chaos around him faded into a dull buzz as he muttered under his breath, "I just wanted some damn pigeon money." Now this? The robbers fanned out, barking orders with the jittery energy of men riding an adrenaline high. Skull Mask waved his shotgun toward the vault, while two others shoved tellers toward the cash drawers. But one of them, a lanky, twitchy guy in a clown mask, zeroed in on Mike's defiance. He swaggered over, pistol raised, the barrel wobbling in his sweaty grip. "You deaf, Grandpa?" he snarled, jabbing the gun toward Mike's forehead. "I said get down, or I blow your head off." Mike didn't flinch. His lips curled into a faint, dangerous smirk. "I don't kneel for nobody, punk," he said, his voice low and steady, carrying the weight of a man who'd stared down worse threats in the ring and walked away grinning. Clown's face twisted with fury behind the mask. "You're dead, tough guy." He squeezed the trigger, the click of the hammer deafening in the tense silence. But Mike was already moving. In a blur of motion, his hand shot up, clamping around the barrel like a vice. With a flick of his wrist, he twisted the gun free, the metal bending with a tortured screech. Clown's scream split the air as Mike's other fist rocketed forward, a single bone-crushing jab that landed square on the robber's jaw. The crack of fracturing bone echoed through the bank, sharp and final, as Clown's body went limp, collapsing to the floor in a heap of tangled limbs and shattered pride. The room froze for a heartbeat, the crowd holding its breath, eyes wide with shock. Then the other robbers snapped into action, their shouts overlapping in a cacophony of rage and disbelief. "Get that bastard!" bellowed a second robber, this one in a wolf mask, Wolf, charging forward with a machete raised high. The blade gleamed as he swung it in a wild, vicious arc, aiming to cleave Mike's chest wide open. "You're done, freak." Mike sidestepped with the grace of a dancer, the machete whistling past him by inches, embedding itself in the wooden paneling of a nearby column. Wolf yanked at it, cursing, but Mike didn't give him a chance to recover. His massive hand darted out, seizing Wolf by the collar of his jacket. With a casual, almost bored yank, he slammed the robber's head onto the teller counter. The wood cracked under the impact, splinters flying, and Wolf's body went slack, the machete clattering to the floor beside him. Mike dusted his hands off, glancing at the blade with a snort. "That's for chopping carrots, not fighting me," he quipped, stepping over the unconscious heap. The third robber, call him Fox, his fox mask tilted askew, lost his nerve. He raised his pistol with both hands and opened fire, the gunfire erupting in a deafening staccato. Bullets tore through the air, punching holes in the walls, shattering a glass partition, and sending a potted fern crashing to the ground in a spray of dirt. Customers screamed, ducking lower, some sobbing as plaster dust clouded the air. But Mike was already moving, dropping into a roll with the agility of a man half his age. He came up behind a row of metal chairs, using them as cover, as Fox emptied his clip, the last shot pinging off a steel beam with a sharp whine. Fox fumbled to reload, his hands shaking, cursing under his breath. That was his mistake. Mike grabbed a chair, one of those flimsy institutional things, and hurled it like a missile. It sailed through the air with deadly precision, striking Fox square in the forehead with a sickening thunk. The robber's head snapped back, his mask flying off as he crumpled to the floor, out cold, a trickle of blood pooling beneath him. Mike stood, brushing plaster off his jacket, his expression unimpressed. "Shooting at me? Classless," he muttered, shaking his head. "Real men use their fists." By now, the fourth robber, a towering brute in a bear mask, Bear, had seen enough to know this wasn't going according to plan. He cracked his knuckles, the sound echoing like gunshots, and slipped on a pair of brass knuckles that gleamed under the lights like a promise of pain. "You want to play hero?" Bear growled, stepping forward, his massive frame casting a shadow across the floor. "Let's go, one-on-one. I'll break you in half." Mike's grin widened, a spark of genuine excitement flashing in his eyes. "Now you're speaking my language, big boy," he said, tossing his cap aside with a flourish. The familiar shaved head and steely gaze of the heavyweight legend gleamed under the lights, and a murmur rippled through the crowd, some recognizing the icon, others too terrified to care. The two squared off, the air between them crackling with tension. Bear lunged first, throwing a haymaker that could have toppled a building. The brass knuckles whistled through the air, aimed straight for Mike's skull. But Mike ducked under it, his movements fluid and precise, the punch missing by a hair. He countered with a lightning-fast combo, left jab to the ribs, right hook to the jaw, left jab to the nose, each blow landing with the force of a sledgehammer. Bear staggered, his mask slipping, blood dripping from his split lip, but he roared and swung again, a wild uppercut that grazed Mike's shoulder. Mike barely flinched. He stepped inside Bear's guard, his eyes narrowing, and unleashed hell. A flurry of punches rained down, left, right, each one a piston-driven masterpiece of power and speed. Bear's head rocked with every hit, his massive frame swaying like a tree in a storm. Then came the finisher. Mike wound up, muscles coiling, and delivered a bone-shattering uppercut. The impact lifted Bear off his feet, sending him airborne. He crashed through the bank's front window in a spectacular shower of glass, landing on the sidewalk outside in a heap, his brass knuckles skittering across the pavement. Pedestrians outside screamed, scattering as the hulking robber groaned and went still. Mike flexed his knuckles, breathing steady, a faint sheen of sweat on his brow. "Next time, train harder, chump," he said, turning back to the chaos inside. The crowd stared, some in awe, others in disbelief, as the legend dusted off his hands and adjusted his sunglasses. Only one robber remained, Skull Mask, the leader. He stood by the vault, his shotgun trembling in his hands, stacks of cash spilling from a duffel bag at his feet. His crew lay scattered around the bank, broken and beaten, a testament to the whirlwind of destruction that was Mike Tyson. Skull Mask's eyes darted between his fallen comrades and the man approaching him, his bravado crumbling under the weight of reality. "Who the hell are you?" he shouted, his voice cracking with a mix of fear and fury. "Why are you screwing this up? This was supposed to be easy." Mike stopped a few feet away, reaching up to remove his sunglasses with deliberate slowness. He fixed Skull Mask with a stare that could pierce steel, his eyes cold and unyielding. "I'm Mike Tyson," he said, his tone low and menacing, each word dripping with quiet menace. "And you just pissed me off when I was trying to get my pigeon money." Skull Mask's resolve shattered. He raised the shotgun with a desperate yell and pulled the trigger, the blast roaring through the bank like a cannon. Buckshot shredded the air, splintering the counter and sending tellers diving for cover with fresh screams. Mike dropped low, diving behind the counter as the blast tore through the space where he'd been standing. Wood chips and plaster rained down, the air thick with dust and the acrid smell of gunpowder. Skull Mask pumped the shotgun, chambering another round, his breaths ragged. "Stay down, you freak," he screamed, swinging the barrel wildly, searching for his target. But Mike was already moving, silent and swift. He circled around the counter, using the debris as cover, his footsteps muffled by the chaos. Skull Mask fired again, the shot going wide, blowing a hole in the wall and sending a framed Employee of the Month photo crashing to the ground. That was his last mistake. Mike erupted from behind the counter like a force of nature, closing the distance in 2 strides. Skull Mask swung the shotgun toward him, but it was too late. Mike's fist slammed into the robber's jaw with the force of a wrecking ball. the impact reverberating through the room. The shotgun flew from Skullmask's hands, skidding across the floor as his body spun, collapsing in a heap amid the scattered bills. Blood trickled from his mouth, his mask cracked and dangling, revealing wild, dazed eyes before they fluttered shut. The bank fell silent, the only sounds the faint ringing of tinnitus and the distant wail of sirens. Mike straightened up, brushing off his jacket with a grimace. He turned to the nearest teller, a young woman peering over the counter, her face a mask of awe and terror, her hands still clutching a withdrawal slip. "So," he said, his voice cutting through the stillness, "can I get my cash now, or what?" She blinked, then scrambled to her feet, nearly dropping the slip in her haste. Yes, sir. Right away, Mr. Tyson." She darted to the cash drawer, fumbling with the bills, her hands trembling but moving fast. Before she could finish, the sirens grew deafening. Red and blue lights flashed through the broken windows as police swarmed the scene, their boots crunching over glass and debris. Officers burst in, guns drawn, shouting commands, "Hands up, on the ground," only to freeze at the sight before them. 4 robbers sprawled across the floor, one dangling half out the shattered window, and Mike Tyson standing amid the wreckage, cool as a winter breeze, his flip phone still in hand. "Hands up," an officer barked, his voice faltering as recognition dawned. "Wait, holy crap, is that Mike Tyson?" Mike raised his hands lazily, the phone dangling from his fingers. "Just here for my pigeon money, officer," he said with a shrug, his tone dry as desert sand. These clowns got in the way. The crowd erupted into cheers, clapping and whooping as the cops moved in to cuff the groaning robbers. The young teller hurried over, clutching a small stack of bills wrapped in a rubber band. "Here you go, Mr. Tyson," she said, her voice shaky but bright with gratitude. "And thank you. You're a hero." Mike took the cash, slipping it into his pocket with a grunt. "Hero? Nah, just another Tuesday." He slid his sunglasses back on, nodding to the stunned onlookers, a mix of wide-eyed customers and shell-shocked tellers, before strolling toward the exit. Glass crunched under his boots as he stepped over Bear's unconscious form, muttering, "Gotta feed those pigeons before they start a riot." Outside, the sun blazed high, casting his shadow long and wide across the street. News vans were already rolling up, reporters spilling out with cameras flashing, shouting questions. "Mr. Tyson, what happened in there? Did you really take them all out?" But Mike didn't stop. He walked off into the distance, a lone figure against the skyline, his silhouette framed by the chaos he'd left behind. Somewhere, triumphant music seemed to swell in the air. Or maybe that was just the sound of the city shaking off its shock and coming back to life. The robbers would wake up in cuffs, their bodies aching, their egos shattered, left to wonder who they'd been foolish enough to cross. And somewhere in the city, a flock of pigeons cooed happily, oblivious to the legend who'd just saved the day, one devastating punch at a time. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Mike Tyson's bank heist showdown teaches us timeless lessons for today's chaotic world. First, stay calm under pressure. Panic clouds judgment, but composure turns challenges into opportunities. Second, harness your strengths. Mike's fists were his tools, just as your skills can be your power. Third, stand up to bullies. Cowering feeds their control, while courage disrupts it. Finally, keep perspective. Mike fought for pigeon money, not glory, reminding us to focus on what matters. In life, face adversity head on, use what you've got, and don't let chaos derail your purpose. Even in a storm, you can be the eye of calm.
If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe Undercover Insights channel.